Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Make Things Better podcast. I will be talking to Liz Hnat and Amanda Cookson about coaching and how Liz has benefited from Amanda's coaching from Northern Value Creators. So I'm really excited to delve into today's episode. I'll be just behind the camera asking many questions. So thanks for being here, and I do hope you enjoy today's episode.
And what do you want us to do with our hands? Do they look like weird little T-Rex hands? What does it look like? Because the camera's quite low, isn't it?
Yeah. Just do that the whole time, if you can.
Okay.
By the way, it's recorded, so that's good. So, hello, welcome to the Make Things Better podcast. I'm wondering, Amanda, do you want to start off by introducing yourself, and then Liz, do you want to introduce yourself afterwards?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm Amanda Cookson, and I'm co-founder of Northern Value Creators. So we are a coaching, training and consultancy company that's mostly working in the tech sector, supporting people who are doers moving into that leadership sort of position.
That's very good.
I know.
I'm Liz, so I'm delivery director at Hive IT. So I manage a team of project managers and delivery managers, and also help kind of drive forward the growth and direction of Hive IT.
Amazing. And how did Hive IT end up getting help and support from Northern Value Creators?
So I think it would have been because Simon, who co-founded Northern Value Creators with me, worked with you, Liz, in Technophobia. So I think that's that kind of link a little bit about how and where. And when I was training as a coach, this is going back to 2017, part of the training that I had was I needed to work with, I think it was something like 4 practice clients, and being an overachiever, I found myself 10 practice clients, and one of them was Johnny. So Johnny was my experiment, and then I think, and Johnny agreed to work with me because of his relationship with Simon, and I think Johnny found it so useful that he then gave me the opportunity to come in and work with other members of the team. So I remember the very first invoice I ever submitted was number 1. And Johnny said to me very sweetly, he said, "Look, love, perhaps if you put like Hive 1, no one would know that this is the first ever paid piece of work that you've got as a coach." So my whole invoicing is structured as well around, I don't think he called me love because Johnny's not that patronising, but it was basically calling me to one side as a more seasoned entrepreneur to a foundling to say, yeah, don't do that.
I think that's really interesting what you just said then, that Johnny gave you the opportunity to come in and work with Hive, whereas from the other side, I very much saw it as Johnny giving us the opportunity to work with you guys and take a benefit of your experience and your kind of skills. So I didn't see it as you being given the opportunity. I saw it as Hive being given the opportunity and our staff being given the opportunity to work with you. So I saw it the other way around.
Yeah.
And Liz, when did you first have coaching from Northern Value Creators, and Amanda in particular?
Yeah, so I think I contracted with Hive for a while, and then I had my second child, and then came back as a permanent employee. And I think it was just after I'd had Isaac that we then started coaching. So that is at least 8 years ago.
I think you might have been the second person I ever worked with.
And then it was at least 2 years that we were having very regular monthly sessions, wasn't it? I think it went on for a while.
It did, yeah. And I think Johnny had a really beautiful philosophy, because what he basically said to everybody was, coaching's there if you need it. So I would come in, and then whoever wanted coaching would come and have a little slot with me. So I'd never really know who I was going to see, what we were going to talk about. But it meant that there was this really open space for people to explore what they wanted, get support. So I learned loads as a new coach. And And I know that the work that I did was really impactful as well, because people still talk to me about it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we still offer it now. People can still have business coaching with Northern Value Creators. So I don't think we would be offering that and encouraging our staff to engage with that if it hadn't been impactful, the work that you've done with us. So I think that's testament to the great work that you have done.
And Liz, going back 8 years ago, maybe before you ever had any coaching from Amanda, how do you think you were different back then to how you are now?
Oh, I mean, yeah. How big and how deep do you want me to go into that can of worms? I think that I'm not necessarily hugely different, but I think there were some key things that Amanda helped me see. One of them is instilling this growth mindset. So I don't think I maybe had that before. And I have learned that it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to admit you don't know things. And, that's just an opportunity for growth and learning. And I think it took a long time to help me come to that realization and to change my brain, to rewire my brain in a way. And then the other thing I think I had was a quite bad imposter syndrome, which a lot of people, especially women in tech, will talk about. And I think that's great that people do talk about it, because I think it can be so debilitating. But just feeling like I shouldn't be here. It might appear that I'm doing a really good job, but I don't internally, I don't feel like I am. And I'm over compensating or striving or doing way more than I need to. And actually just to be confident in my skills was something that you helped me really find my feet with, I think. And that opened up, like, just being more comfortable with yourself opened up whole new parts of my brain. Like we were just talking earlier about how when you're in like a state of anxiety and fear, not fear of other people, but fear that I was failing myself, your brain capacity is so much more reduced. And so when I found that confidence and in my skills and my abilities, my whole brain opened up to actually learning more and just being more comfortable. And it changed my whole career progression, I would say.
And from your perspective, Amanda, what sort of thought patterns were you looking out for early on, and what sort of questions did you ask Liz to help her sort of tap into her real potential and maybe overcome some of that fear early on?
I like the question. I might give you an odd answer. So my working process is to sit and listen really deeply. So as I am listening to my clients, I'm looking for the metaphors that they use and the constructs in which they perceive their reality. And so anything that for me seems like it might be a limiting belief or self-sabotage or a belief that is maybe unhelpful or something that I can see that they can't see, those are the areas that I kind of bring to light and to life. And so I don't have in my back pocket, I always ask these 3 questions, or I always look for this particular thing, because that's not the kind of coaching I do. It's very person-centered, it's very deep listening, and it's reflecting back and then seeing where it goes. Because one of the things, so we're talking, aren't we, about you were the second paid client I had, that when I did those 10 practice people I've talked about, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I know this. I know what's up with you. You're a people pleaser, or you're a procrastinator. And I would rush ahead and I'd be offering solutions and asking questions that were absolutely based on my diagnosis, and it would go horribly wrong. And so what I've learned is you go at the pace of the person you're with, and you listen really carefully, you let go of your assumptions, and you allow the other person to work out for themselves what's going on, what do they need, where do they want to go next.
Yeah, to be clear, Amanda's coaching is not, I'm going to come along and give you a solution that fixes whatever you might be struggling with at all, because that just wouldn't work. It has to be the person themselves going along that journey in it and being guided along it to find what might be causing issues, but then also to find their own solutions. And it's you're using tools and techniques that help them go on that journey, but it's not like you fix a person.
Yeah, totally.
And I know you talked about imposter syndrome and working in tech. You think from a more macro, societal, bigger picture, like zooming out, is there any ways in which the world at the moment is set up for people, especially maybe women, to have more self-limiting beliefs because of, how the tech industry is, and especially like 8 years ago?
And just like, did you see your question? Like, of course. Duh. So essentially, imposter feelings start to emerge when you feel othered. So,
and when you were like 3 years
how
old.
many women work at Hive as a percentage?
I should know that off the top of my head.
How many
Quite high.
founders and senior leaders are female? And what was that like 8 years ago when I was working with you?
Well, there was one.
Exactly. So when you feel othered and different, when you are not the same as everyone else, you start to get these things like, is it me? You feel a bit more stressed. You worry about acceptance. We wander around in our brains with like this really outdated, limited kit, our monkey brain, which is constantly, am I safe? Do I belong? Do they like me? Am I lovable? Am I enough? All the time, checking. And so if you're the only female in a male-dominated environment, if your style of giving feedback, coding, thinking is different to others, then you start to feel like, is it me? Is it enough? Am I okay to challenge? Will I be rejected? So you've got all of that coming in, as well as that feeling of learning and growing and moving in your role, that if you're like everybody else, you don't need to worry about it. You just can focus on your own career and trajectory and learning, rather than that also, am I fitting in? Am I okay? Am I the weird one? Am I the odd one out? So yeah, there's loads, absolutely loads. And I think I love thinking about imposter syndrome because it's so interesting. And there are so many ways now that are being scientifically proven to make a difference to the way people think. And some of it's about how we give feedback and how we support others. And so those kind of platitudes, oh, you're fine. It's all right. You'll be okay. You can do it. Yeah, super unhelpful. Because where's the evidence? Where's the detail? How are you showing me I can do it? So again, if you are the outlier in an organization and you are struggling with your value and self-worth, and the way that people are giving you feedback and support is platitudes because they don't really know what to do with you, because they think you're awesome, but you don't seem to get it, then you're not getting from them the feedback that you need. Because what you really want when either you're working with someone who's struggling with imposter feelings or you're struggling with them yourself is gather your evidence for how awesome you are. So you've been lovely about my coaching, and I was saying, I was so lucky to have this opportunity. Massive imposter syndrome when I started as a coach. And I'm really clever with imposter syndrome because I can have it about anything, give you a massive list of where I felt imposter about this or imposter about that. But going back to coaching, I felt so uncomfortable about whether I was good enough that I did not ask anybody for any feedback on my coaching until I was about 4 years in. And I was having supervision, and I was saying, well, I never really know whether I'm doing a good job. And my supervisor went, well, don't you ask people? And I was like, no. She was like, well, just ask people, Amanda. Ask them in the session. Has that resonated? Has that been helpful? And at the end of coaching, gather feedback. So when I first started, when you did that kind of conversation with me about how did it go, what did you get from it, they really blew my mind because I wasn't expecting people to be as positive, because in my head, well, it's nothing, is it? Just what I do, it's just listening.
And I think just going back to your original question, which I'm not going right back to the original question, but about imposter syndrome. No, let me just hang on. I'm just going around in circles now. But about imposter syndrome, again, when we were just talking about Amanda doesn't fix you, it's not like that. Amanda helps you recognize some of the problems you're facing, like we've said, But imposter syndrome doesn't just go away. Like, it's there all the time. And I'm not just saying it's something that only women have, men have it as well, but it is more prevalent in females. And I think it's there in not just your work life, but also your home life, or, you know, it can be across everything. But what Amanda gives you is the ability to recognize when it's creeping in or appearing, and then some kind of tools and ways to handle and deal with it. I think the recognition is the biggest thing. Is recognizing, oh, I'm feeling my imposter syndrome, or I'm demonstrating behaviors that I know are a reflex of my imposter syndrome. So there's that recognition of it, and then there's the being able to tackle it. I also think that in the tech industry, which, yes, has been more male dominated, in an answer to your question, we actually do have quite a high percentage of females at Hive, which I think helps. Now, which I do help feel build safety for the women that we do have at Hive. You know, like you're saying, we can recognise, you know, there's people like us. So in the tech industry, where it is more male dominated, you may have imposter syndrome that's built up since you were a child, and then that sometimes is reaffirmed by certain males trying to impose their dominance. And when you experience that, because you do get characters from all walks of life in whatever job you're in, but when you're one female among 20 males, it's more likely that you'll see that happening. And so when those males are then trying to exert their dominance, it just kind of reinforces your imposter syndrome, and then it kind of snowballs and it compounds it, and it gets worse and worse. So is there more imposter syndrome in a male-dominated industry? I would expect so, because you're just having more of those incidences that build on top of it. I don't know, is that a question?
No, it's a good question. I mean, so imposter syndrome is where you are a high achiever, but you don't recognise your high achievements, and where within the context that you are in, you feel stressed, and your stress response has got you going back to a mental construct that you're not good enough. And in that, then trying to relieve those stress feelings, you've then got behaviours like avoidance, so turning up late for meetings, not doing work, leaving things to the last minute, or perfectionism, over preparing, being really brusque and awkward, you know, all sorts of different kind of responses, but it all comes from that kind of the context I'm in doesn't make me feel safe. I'm not able to see my worth, and I'm compensating for this feeling of discomfort with these other behaviours that are then sabotaging my own success and health and mental well-being. So it can be lots of different environments, I reckon.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And in terms of creating those safe environments, is there anything that companies and the staff at those companies can do to create more safe environments for their staff and help people overcome imposter syndrome as well?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? That I think that what Hive has created is a really safe and supportive environment. And so I think it's a really lovely place to work. I think the people that, when I work with them and I talk to them, they have so much love and joy for where they work. And I think that having worked, you know, for me being my first client to having hundreds of clients, the way that people feel and the level of retention you have here is something that people would absolutely kill for. And so I think the answer to your question about what do organisations do, I think it'll be more interesting to think about what does Hive do? What do you think is at the heart of why retention is so high?
I think it's because we really value people. I think Hive recognises that people are the most important asset that we have, and we want to take care of those people. And that doesn't just mean at work, but it means, you know, we care about, have they got a good work-life balance? Are we helping them develop and grow? Do we give them enough support? Do we let their voices be heard? And we want to do all of those things, and we don't get it right all the time. But I think you talked about feedback, and I think we try to invite that feedback, and we try to be as open and honest and transparent as we can be with all our staff and team members, so that there's nothing hidden away, nothing that they're worried about, I suppose. And just, we recognise, that people are a whole thing and everybody's very different, and try to, work with people in the way that's best for them. And I suppose that's what we do.
Because I was thinking about the management training that we developed together. Now, that was years ago as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those beautiful little blue folders.
Oh, our line management training.
Yeah.
So, so this is another amazing thing that Northern Value Creators have done. So as well as doing the business coaching with us, we recognise that we've got about 8 or 9 line managers in Hive at the moment, and none of them are particularly trained. It was kind of something we said, are people interested in doing this? And they said yes. And we said, okay, great. And we tried for a while to implement our own style of doing that, but we recognised that training needed to be given. And I don't know whether you'd ever done like the line management training in the way that we then co-created that together, but we then set out 5 different kind of key things that we wanted our line managers to have experience and like a toolbox. And I reran some of that training just a couple of months ago, and it's so good to remind myself of the training that you've given and that understanding of how people's brains work, and the neuroscience that supports helping people grow and develop. And it was great training, and we now have that as a toolbox that we can use and train more people with, and that's like really good for us.
Because I was thinking about the training in terms of why is retention so good here. So what happens a lot in tech is, in order for someone to progress in their career and to get promotion, they have line management responsibility. But a lot of people, when they move from being a technical expert into managing others, aren't given that training or that support. So you're brilliant at coding or doing a specific thing, but actually working with humans is really battling. And then, and this is, I think, what you started to do with everybody, was the answer to this training is to give people HR process. So this is how often you should have a one-to-one. This is what you do if somebody wants to go on holiday. This is what you do if there's a sickness. This is what you do if there's a problem in performance or if somebody requests training. But what that doesn't do is give anybody a really clear, like, philosophical construct about what does it mean to lead others? What do human beings need? How do I want to be? How do I want them to be and feel? And what's required? So I think what we co-created within that toolkit was the ability for everybody who manages people to be really thoughtful about it. So we were ahead of our time, because the leading thinking now around line managing people is that it's completely personalised. So a lot of larger organisations have, this is a model, this is what you do, this is what you say, and it's very kind of homogenised and specific. Whereas that doesn't work, because human beings are so different, and we all need different levels of support and different wraparounds and different detail or freedoms. And so I feel what we co-created together was something that gave people the power and the understanding to really be in relationship with somebody and understand, what does this person need?
And we also, as part of that, explored, didn't we, what we wanted line management at Hive to be. And we created some kind of values and guidance that is, when somebody says, oh, I'm interested in becoming a line manager, we can now say to them, well, this is what we feel line managers at Hive should be doing, and this is kind of the responsibilities that you'd be taking on, and the ethos and the value of being a line manager at Hive. It wasn't just, like you say, that, okay, now you'll have to manage X, Y, Z. It's like
blindly follow this.
This is who we want our line managers to be, and these are our goals. And we defined all of that before we then put the training together to give people the tools to embody that vision of what a line manager is.
What do you think makes a good line manager? I know you've mentioned quite a few things there, but is there anything in particular that stands out?
I feel it's about listening. So the more authority you have in a relationship, the harder it is for people to be open and honest with you. So you have to work really hard to gather those perspectives. So listening is really important, being curious, being flexible. I feel always, what makes a good manager is somebody who's able to be vulnerable and human, but also set boundaries, to be somebody who really thinks about the legacy that they leave behind. So if you think about it, when you are managing others, it's to get them to do stuff. I mean, the easiest, quickest way to get people to do stuff is to tell them, isn't it? And if they don't do it right, to tell them how they should do it right. But you're not creating learning. So I've got this real thing about regenerative leadership. And I sort of first came across this idea of regenerative relationships when I was training again as a coach. So there's this non-directive coach called Nancy Klein, and she asks you a question and then she just listens and she'll say, what else? And she contracts with the person who's being coached that when they finish doing their thinking, they say they're done. And so there's no interrupting, there's lots of space. And it sounds like, how on earth is that going to help people do profound thinking? And I've watched it. I've watched her demonstrate what she does, and it's just phenomenal. And I think great managers listen, because every single thing they need to do and know and understand and change and facilitate, their direct reports and their team will tell them if they get out of their own way. And they don't make assumptions, and they don't let it be like a hurt ego thing. And I think that regenerative bit for me is also that it's about learning and growing. So my proudest moments when I think back to when I was leading a team with the people that got promoted, and, I'm still in contact with people on Facebook and they're all doing amazing things across the globe. And I feel really proud that I was a part of their journey, and the tools and the things that I gave them and the conversations we had have then sparked this whole kind of life and opportunity. And that for me is what is great. And looping back to that whole imposter syndrome thing, if you are listening and supporting and helping someone grow, you're helping to combat those imposter feelings and unlock all of that potential that's in another individual.
I also think there's a skill, isn't there, in not just the listening, but helping that person feel heard. So you can sit and listen, but if you don't relay what you've heard, they don't know they've been heard. So one of the skills that I think I've picked up from you is to listen and let somebody talk and then say, so what I've heard you say is X, Y, Z. And sometimes when you hear what you've said back to you, it can start whole different thought processes, or it can make you realize things that you didn't realize you were saying. And I think that's a really key skill to have as well. And I enjoy then watching where that takes them. Like you say, maybe it's, a whole new career or whatever, but it can have been sparked just from that, having been listened to and heard.
Yeah, that question. I teach coaching skills to leaders, and one of the first bits in that kind of training process is listening. And you're right, that kind of, I teach empathetic listening, which involves playing back, summarising, and mirroring. And I guess why I think that's so important is we've got 2 adopted children at home, and we had a really tricky time with our son, who is a little bit neurospicy, and I think really struggled with that rejection sensitivity of going from foster parent into our family. And he used to scream, and you're not listening, and you're not listening. And part of non-violent communication, which again I think is a really brilliant toolkit for leaders, is to repeat. When you repeat back what someone has said, there is no doubt in that person's mind that you have heard them, exactly, because you said the words. And so what I find in coaching, bringing it back to then perhaps the conversations that leaders and managers might have, is somebody might say something really hard, like, I don't know, I'm shit at everything, or this project's a waste of time, or, that was a waste of energy, wasn't it? And if you were to have a conversation around those sorts of things, that would be really uncomfortable, but you can repeat back and say, so what you're saying is you think this is a waste of time. It's completely neutral, and just leave a space for, oh, well, no, it's not all a waste of time. I guess there is, this bit that's of value, and you can help people do some really great thinking just by hearing their exact words back. Super powerful tool.
Yeah, for me, reflecting back can be very valuable. I feel like I've just done it then a little bit. So, Amanda, you mentioned there one of your proudest moments at Northern Value Creators, and that sparked my interest into what maybe one of your most proud moments at Hive IT could be. Liz, I wonder if you have any memories that you could share.
So I've been properly part of Hive for 8 years, and there have been lots of kind of big wins along the way. Some of the projects that we've had, the 10th birthday that we just celebrated just in March, and they just keep coming. Like, I think Hive at the moment is really striving to set really good foundations for its future. So there's things like the office move that's going on at the moment, the focus we've got on EDI, the fact that we're making the effort to set business goals and share them with our employees, that we're, really striving to implement career progression pathways for our employees. Some of the things that are going on at the moment, when they're completed, will be probably some of my proudest moments, because I've had a good hand in trying to make them happen, because we've listened to what our employees have said, and we're trying to act on that. So I think some of our most proudest moments are yet to come, but they're kind of like we're in the process of them. Just celebrating the fact we were 10 years old, with the friends and clients that we've had over those 10 years who we've built really strong relationships with, and who have supported us in our journey the whole way through, was probably a standout proud moment for me. Everybody in that room, whether they've been part of our past or our present or potentially our future, it was just so lovely to have everybody there and to have great conversations and to have fun, and the whole night was just amazing. And I think that's probably one of our proudest moments.
And talking about those initiatives, we've got the 4 pillars at Hive, the strategy teams, and I know you've been massively involved in creating a lot of those initiatives and what's been going on internally for our team. And a lot of that again has to do with creating that inclusive work culture and helping people, which I'm sure has been influenced by Amanda a lot. Would you be able to share a bit more about those initiatives and what the purpose behind them is?
Yeah, so as a senior leadership team, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and Amanda in Northern Value Creators kind of helped us on this. I remember we had that session where we looked at what our bright lines were in terms of what is Hive working towards. And so we got together and we said, well, if we looked at our future, this is something that loads of businesses do. It's not unusual. But if we got together and we looked at what our future was like, what are some key things that we want to work on? So we said, stability of the company is almost like a given, but we want to have a niche. We want to have, we want to focus on diversity and increasing diversity in the company. We want our staff to be happy, and we want to do social good. And what we recognised is that as a not particularly diverse senior leadership team, we're not experts in those areas, and we knew that our staff, who are diverse and have lots of different thoughts and opinions, could really help us progress in those areas. And so that's why we came up with what we at the time called theme teams, but now strategy teams, and then each of them have now got their own name, and they're formed up of groups of different members of teams who come together and look at what they can do to progress us towards, expansion or meeting goals in each of those kind of strategy areas. some of us, like the EDI team, which is the strategy team I'm part of, we had to do a lot of talking. I think there was a lot of, well, what does it mean to us? And I think we're hopefully going to have a strategy day where we all get together and those teams kind of update on the progress that they've been making. And for some of those teams, it'll be to sit down and say, well, we did a lot of talking, but actually some really good things came out of that. Like we really did define what diversity, inclusion, and equity looks like for Hive. We had a vision for our team, and we started mapping out a journey. We've made improvements to recruitment already, and there's loads of things that seem quite small, but actually if you put them all together can be really meaningful and impactful, and are laying those foundations for Hive to grow and thrive. And I think we've got, like Amanda said, we've gotten a lot of stuff really right in Hive, and one of that is the engagement with our employees to have the ability to help set and drive the direction of the company. And I feel like some of that has just happened by luck. A lot of it from Johnny, Duncan and Marv's ethos originally and the way that they want Hive to be. But it feels like you can only survive for so long on somebody's idea. At some point it has to become kind of a real thing, and I think the strategy teams are kind of the result of that, making them a real thing, so that as Hive grows and in the future, they really are part of the foundations of what we are.
I don't think it's luck.
No?
No, I don't. I think that by having such a warm, open, supportive culture, by giving people things like coaching, it's really difficult because the conversations I have with clients is completely confidential, but there was so many things that I help people move through that might have been related to their home life or their health or their relationships, because they could talk about anything at all, that I think help people stay regulated, reduce the level of stress that they had, and help them feel really recognised and supported as a whole person. And I think that gift and that support and that safety and that ability to then sort some of your shit out has meant that you've got a lot of very grown up, very rounded individuals who feel really committed to the organisation, because in that contract between employee and company, I think a lot has been given to employees. And there are a lot of people now, in the state of the nation where I think that contract is finished. You used to work for a company and you knew that if you kept your head down, did great stuff, you'd be guaranteed a role. You'd get promoted. And that's kind of disappeared for a lot of organisations. But I think here at Hive, people just feel really looked after in a very positive way, not babied, but supported.
Yeah, I think it probably,
and that creates engagement, and that creates the environment where people can then start to be invested in giving you their thinking, their additional time, and how can we make this place even better and what is next.
I absolutely think that our employees are not just here to ride the paycheck. Like they are genuinely invested in how can we make Hive the best that it can be, and that passion is maybe facilitated by the company, but is also our greatest asset. The fact that people really are invested in Hive and its future is the greatest gift. It's really really special, actually.
Yeah. Is there anything you see elsewhere, Amanda, through your coaching, and you think, maybe that could be improved? Maybe working in tech, is there any common themes at all that you come across? Maybe any challenges or difficulties that other people are having?
The thing that I'm noticing, which might be a slightly different answer to your question, but what I'm noticing is that when you feel safe and comfortable, you can do your best thinking. So I trained, I think it was 2017, 2018 in conversation intelligence. And this was all about how the way you communicate either sparks connection or disconnection. So you either talk to somebody and you elevate their cortisol and they think you're a dick and they don't want to work with you, they don't want to help you, they don't want to share anything, or you work and communicate in a way that elevates oxytocin and everyone leans in and what can I do to help? And so I've been teaching this for years and using it as part of my models to supporting leaders. And what I'm beginning to understand is there's more to it than just that, because it's not just about the way I talk to you, it's also about the way I talk to myself. And so if you are a leader who is full of negative self-talk, so you've got full of frustration for other people, who thinks, I don't know, this person in your team is an asshole and they should never have got the job. All of these things, all of these feelings, all of these stresses then create an environment in your brain where you don't do your best thinking, you don't learn, you don't solve problems, you don't see what's right in front of you, and that limits then the opportunity of either yourself as an individual, your team, and the organisation. So if you take it, because at the moment I think there's so much challenge out there. You know, the cost of living has gone up, there's so much uncertainty. I think, you know, I run a business, this is the business, it's like quite hard. There are some real challenges. And when you are challenged and stressed, you're not seeing what's in front of you. And the quality of your ideas and the quality of your thinking is what's going to then solve world problems. But if we're all stressed and we're not operating in that kind of whole brain relaxed way, we're not going to be able to think and see things. And there's a lovely example, which I just think sounds too far-fetched, but there was this remote tribe, someone will have to fact check this and then email in, but they'd never seen a boat before. So when the invaders came and they had the boats out in the sea, outside the beach, nobody saw the boats because their brains were like, no, I have a clue what that is. I don't see it. I don't notice it. This is where this self-awareness comes in. You don't see what's in front of you.
Seriously, they did not see the boat?
They did not see the boat
brains
because they'd never been out on that wet stuff. They'd never been in a boat.
Wow.
No clue what a boat is. They didn't see it. And this is with self-awareness. Yeah, you start to understand, how is my behaviour impacting on others? How is this thing that pisses me off? Because we were just talking about somebody, weren't we, about the way that they work gives them more of the stuff that they hate, that creates this bad behaviour, that gets more of the people doing the stuff that they hate. So you end up with this really vicious cycle. And so the bit that I think we're not understanding, and it's whether that's related to tech, which has got an awful lot of fast movement and lots of things to kind of hold together, or elsewhere, is that I don't think as human beings we've really got the fact that the way we think, the way we communicate, the way we feel affects the quality of our conversations, our thinking, and the success of our business and our teams. Because feeling stuff is like, it's a bit woo-woo, isn't it? Yeah? Business, that's like hard man stuff.
I can't feel things. Just shove it down. Shove it down.
So that's what we're missing, is I think that self-regulation, self-management, and just being more connected into how it feels. Because going back to big fan of Hive, I don't know whether you've noticed. But I keep saying, Hive is amazing. But one of the things that I think is a real win for Hive is how it feels. How it feels to work here. And that's what people miss. They might paint the office a funky colour, got the beanbags, got the breakfast, yeah, got the pods, got all this cool stuff, but they haven't thought about how does it actually feel. And I think for leaders who would like the same level of retention, would like to have and enjoy more success with their teams, they need to think more about how it feels and less about what can I tell, do, force on others. How can I change this? What can I do? When it's actually about, well, how do we need to be?
And sometimes the only way that you can know how it feels is to get that understanding from the people that you support. You know, you need to be talking to them and you need to be listening to them. Like we've just had that whole conversation about listening. But if you're not asking your staff and they don't feel comfortable and safe to give you honest answers about how it feels, then you don't know, and you can't either change that or make more of that happen. Your employees are the people that help you know what's best in terms of the way that they want it to feel, I suppose, you know.
I think as well, you often need someone from outside the system, because when you're having a conversation inside the system, particularly if you think about the tribe that couldn't see the boat, yeah, you might think, oh yeah, I've had this conversation, I know where we're at as a team, but things still aren't moving forwards. And then you need someone like me to come from outside the system, actually then to be able to see things and go, there's a bloody great boat just out there. Yeah. Oh, we all wondered what that was.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside help is
Because we
important.
had a bit of a conversation earlier, very cryptic. But the thing that I'd highlighted, oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah, and so-and-so's talked about that as well. But you don't know that you need to worry about it, like this boat, unless you start to really get that understanding from outside the system to just bring it, I guess, into focus and into awareness.
Yeah, very much so. Very much.
Yeah, that makes sense. So finally, final question we ask every guest is, what can people do to make things better? And you can interpret this however you like. You want to start with you, Amanda, and then we'll ask you this.
Oh, painful. What can people do to make things better? I think fundamentally, a better life is about love. So that is love for yourself, which is really hard to do. So that's forgiveness, loving all your parts, the crappy bits about you, the awesome bits about you. I think it's about the ability to love the people around you, your friends, to love your colleagues, love your clients. Love you, Liz. Love you too, Amanda. And it's also in that spirit of love to actually take a bit more responsibility and ownership for the world around you and for other people, and to send that love out there and to help, support, encourage in whatever way they can. And if we all just focused on love for ourselves, for our partners, for our clients, and for everyone else, that would make everything fucking awesome.
Love it.
I can't say anything else now because you just nailed it. I've got nothing.
Nonsense.
No, honestly, you're right. And that would make everything better.
Love it. That's an amazing answer. All you need is love. All right. Thanks so much for watching or listening to the podcast. Thanks so much, Amanda and Liz. Amanda, where can people find you and other value creators?
I'm mostly on the internet. LinkedIn. So I'm really active on LinkedIn, and I'm Amanda Cookson. So I'm quite easy to find. Happy for people to email me as well if they want to chat about any of this. But that's where I mostly hang out. I'd like to be an Instagram person, but I'm just not. Nothing's beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It would be like the ugliest Instagram space. So
There should be more of that now. There's too many filters, isn't it?
All right. Great stuff. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Colin.
We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.